She said she would only resign if Giorgia Meloni asked her directly, publicly, explicitly, on the record. For 3 years, Meloni never asked. Then came one referendum, one defeat, one phone call. And on March 25th, 2026, a letter arrived at Palazzo Chigi. Dear Georgia, as you have officially requested, I hereby tender my resignation. This is the story of Daniela Santanche, the minister Meloni protected for 3 years and sacrificed in 3 days. October 2022. Giorgia Meloni walked into Palazzo Chigi as Italy's new Prime Minister. She brought her closest allies with her. Daniela Santanche was one of them, a founding member of Fratelli d'Italia, a senior party figure, a loyalist who had stood by Meloni through years in opposition. She was given the Ministry of Tourism, bold, untouchable, loyal. But the files were already open. The first case was Visibilia, a publishing group Santanche had previously owned. Milan prosecutors alleged false accounting, numbers that didn't match. A trial was coming. Santanche denied everything. She said her criminal record was spotless. She said she had done nothing wrong. She said the accusations were political. And Meloni stood behind her. Then came a second case, KI Group, alleged fraudulent bankruptcy. Then a third, Bio Era, an organic food company that had collapsed. An €8 million financial hole that prosecutors wanted to examine. The opposition called for her resignation. Month after month, motion after motion, Meloni didn't move. Then came the case that would define everything: COVID subsidy fraud. The allegation was straightforward. During the pandemic, Visibilia employees had continued working, while the company simultaneously claimed emergency state subsidies intended for businesses that had suspended operations. In other words, the state was paying salaries that the company was also paying, public money flowing into private accounts. Prosecutors referred the case to trial. Santanche had made one public promise. She had said, clearly and on the record, "If I am referred to trial over the COVID fraud, I will resign." The referral came. She didn't move. The opposition filed a no-confidence motion. The debate was scheduled. Meloni shielded her again. The vote never happened. Santanche stayed. For 3 years, the message from Palazzo Chigi was consistent. She stays. She is innocent until proven guilty. She has the Prime Minister's confidence. And then, in 72 hours, everything changed. March 22nd and 23rd, 2026. Italy voted on Meloni's flagship judicial reform, the separation of judges and prosecutors into distinct career tracks. 54% voted no. 15 million Italians had said no. It was Meloni's first major defeat since coming to power, and she understood what it meant. This was not just a referendum result. This was a verdict on her government. The voters had spoken, and what they had said, in part, was this: "We do not trust your judgment." Within 48 hours, Meloni began to move. First, Andrea Del Mastro, Justice Undersecretary, resigned. He had been under pressure for weeks, linked to a catering company connected to a suspected frontman for a Roman mafia boss. Meloni thanked him publicly for his institutional responsibility. Second, Giusy Bartolozzi, Chief of Staff at the Justice Ministry, resigned. She had said in a television interview that if the referendum passed, they would get rid of the magistrates. The statement had been a political disaster. Again, Meloni thanked her. Then Meloni made one more call, to Santanche: "Step aside." Santanche initially refused. She sent a message back to the Prime Minister. Yesterday, perhaps abruptly, she said, "You will understand my state of mind. I told you I was unwilling to resign immediately." She had conditions. She did not want her resignation tied to the referendum result. She had not been responsible for the defeat. She did not want her exit grouped with Del Mastro's. Their situations were different. She wanted her own moment, her own terms, her own narrative. But Meloni had already decided. And in Italian politics, when the Prime Minister has decided, there are no terms to negotiate. March 25th. A letter arrived at Palazzo Chigi. Dear Georgia, I am tendering my resignation, as you officially requested, from the role of minister that you had entrusted to me, and which I believe I have carried out to the best of my ability and without any issues. She thanked Meloni for the trust shown over 3 years. Then she made something clear. She wanted it publicly known. It was Meloni who had asked her to leave, not her own choice, not the result of the legal cases, not pressure from the opposition. She was obeying an order. I would only have resigned in response to an explicit and public request from you. She added one final passage. Yesterday, perhaps brusquely, I expressed my unwillingness to resign immediately because I wanted it to be separate from the referendum. I didn't want to be the scapegoat for a defeat that was certainly not my fault. I also wanted my resignation to be separate from the issue involving Del Mastro. Having clarified this, I have no difficulty saying, I obey. I won't hide a sense of bitterness about the outcome of my ministerial journey, but in my life, I'm used to paying my own bills, and often those of others as well. I care more about our friendship and the future of our movement. When the news reached the Chamber of Deputies, applause broke out from the opposition benches. Giuseppe Conte, leader of the Five Star Movement, stood outside Parliament and spoke to reporters. It took 3 years and 15 million citizens who voted no in the referendum to get a minister responsible for a COVID scam to finally resign. Who is responsible for all this? One name, Giorgia Meloni, a prime minister who is weak, extremely weak today. Elly Schlein, secretary of the Democratic Party, was more restrained. Daniela Santanchè also resigned, but still too late. The trials continue. The false accounting case at Visibilia is proceeding in Milan. The COVID subsidy fraud investigation remains open. The fraudulent bankruptcy cases involving BioEra and Key Group are expected to move toward conclusion before the summer. Santanche's criminal record is, as she said, still spotless. No verdict has been delivered, no conviction has been recorded, but she is no longer a minister. And the question that nobody in Rome wants to answer directly is the same one that 15 million voters were already asking. Why did it take 3 years? 3 years of court cases, 3 years of no confidence motions, 3 years of opposition demands, 3 years of Meloni standing behind her. And then, one referendum, 72 hours, done. What changed? The answer is not complicated. The calculation changed. For 3 years, protecting Santanche cost less than removing her. Loyalty to a founding ally was worth more than the political discomfort of the legal cases. Then the referendum happened, and the cost of protection suddenly became higher than the cost of sacrifice. Santanche understood this. She said so herself. She didn't want to be the scapegoat. She didn't want her exit used to explain someone else's defeat. But that is precisely what happened. In Italian politics, loyalty has a price, and the price is always paid when it becomes inconvenient to keep paying it. Daniela Santanchè left the Ministry of Tourism on March 25, 2026. Her successor, Gianmarco Mazzi, was sworn in 1 week later, and Giorgia Meloni, Italy's most powerful leader, is rebuilding. One resignation at a time. But the letter is on the record. Dear Georgia, as you have officially requested, I obey. In the record room, power always leaves a paper trail. Subscribe to the record room, because the next file is already open.